Are you sitting comfortably? Good. Then I will begin. Your life is not what you believe. Your life is not your own. You are controlled, cajoled, and manipulated from the day you are born. Nothing you do is free. Everything you know is a lie. The truth is more like a world of dystopian, futuristic, nightmarish science fiction. Only it's not science fiction. The truth is that an ancient and massive secret society has been playing with mankind for centuries. And today, they are bigger and more powerful than ever before. They did not infiltrate government. They created it. They control every aspect of our lives, from fashion to food, from teaching to technology. History is twisted and rewritten, from revolutions to royalty, from propaganda to world war, from birth to death. Every aspect of our lives is created and controlled. If you want to know the truth, then proceed. But beware, you will never see your world the same way again. It's time for the final countdown of the American Illuminati. Most people today have heard of the Illuminati, a dark, evil, and sinister group that control the world. Their influence reaches into governments, religious powers, and business. They are unseen, unheard, and yet their intent is clear: to change the world for their own ends. They are manipulating the world through new technologies, giving us reality TV presidents, bringing down old empires to make way for a new form of one world rule. Breaking up a European Union, fostering terrorism, creating diseases to control the masses, and much more. Where did they come from? What are their beliefs? And who are they? We will track them down through time, discover their belief system, and therefore their intentions. By understanding these things, we will be able to more clearly see who they are. Their myths, beliefs, and mysteries are absolute in importance to understanding who they are, what they do, and why. From their own master egos to their shady dealings, we will see the center of their worldwide syndication. Bilderbergers, Trilateral Commission, Jesuits, Knights Templars, Opus Dei, MI6, CIA, and more are all implicated in our tale, and all are implicit in the grand plan, a plan we will reveal. Once you know these facts, you will never be able to unknow them. Are you truly ready to discover the truth? In order to find the true Illuminati, we must travel through time and space to find them in every culture of the world over a period that reaches back into ancient Sumeria and Africa, and a landscape as diverse as South America and Japan. Yes, that is the truth, because the illumination or enlightenment this elusive group were seeking has been sought for generations and passed down like a golden thread through time, from one learned brother to another, from one master to the next. The secrets they held within their groups is almost as old as mankind. We will discover constantly recurring themes within the ritual and language employed by various cults, societies, and religious organizations that all claim to be disparate groups. As the centuries fall by the wayside, we keep on finding the same keys that aid us in unlocking the door of mystery. And yet, one thing eludes us. What about now? We must discover the truth about the Illuminati, and the question of whether they are still manipulating the people of the world has to be answered. We have plenty of scope, and we have some incredible starting places. Should we begin with the Templars and trace their Masonic descent as others have done? Should we look at Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati and search the shadows for Men in Black? Is the Skull and Crossbones Society of Yale in the USA the breeding ground for future presidents? And what about the Bilderbergers and the royal family? Some, if not all of these, will be familiar. Some have even appeared in the mainstream media, connected to assassinations and financial scandals. But what is the truth? Certainly, all could trace their descent from the solar serpentine cults of ancient times, and all still hold many of the rituals and beliefs to be found in the earliest of cults.
Ardean regnum phasmatis.
The truth is that the majority of the members of such groups have no knowledge at all about what lies at the center of their own particular secret wheel. Suspect organizations within the Grand Illuminati are the Freemasons, Knights of Malta, Knights Templar, Opus Dei, Jesuits, Priory of Sion, or the Merovingian bloodline, CIA, MI5, and other secret services, the original Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, and the Chinese Triad. Now all we need to do is to see if all these positions on the rim revolved around the same center. Let's look at Freemasons and their origin. The history of the Freemasons is not a simple subject. In fact, it is virtually impossible to decipher the truth from the myriad histories fed into thousands of books on the subject. Many Masonic historians try desperately to claim that their lineage stretches right back to the Temple of Solomon and the builder Hiram Abiff. They are even told it is as fact in their ceremonies. Others claim descent from Roman and Greek stonemasons and the Roman augurs, who had special knowledge of the lay of the land and energies related to our modern-day perception of ley lines and feng shui. There can be no strict proof for any of this, albeit likely that the secret knowledge has been passed down the centuries from one adept and initiate to another. The general consensus has the Freemasons emerging from medieval stonecutters who are known as operative masons. These are the skilled craftsmen who built the great cathedrals and churches of Europe for the Catholic Church, and who included many mysterious images and secrets within their amazing carvings. Now, understanding that this great building exercise erupted with such a vengeance following the First Crusade and the setting up of such organizations as the Knights Templar and Cistercians, who themselves were incidental in bringing back building skills to Europe, is the first part of the puzzle. The Templars and their non-warrior cousins, the Cistercians, were more than incidental in both bringing back the seed of alchemical enlightenment from the Crusades, but also the building skills of the Islamic Middle Eastern world. This is seen in the arch and the octagonal designs incorporated into most Templar and Cistercian buildings, as well as other building works carried out under their tutelage. Also built into these structures are huge amounts of numerological symbols and mystical metaphors. These methods were understood and carried on by the Freemasons, who today ritualize these ancient ways and probably do not even understand their correct purpose. These mystical building metaphors are as ancient as Stonehenge or the Great Pyramids, even if the term Freemason is not. There is a long golden thread running through time, and the Freemasons are just part of it. Today, the Freemasons are a global phenomena, with members from across the business community, religious establishment, and politics. The influence they have is obviously huge and universal. They have links with many other orders, such as the Sovereign Order of the Knights of Malta, and have had, over the years, a lot of bad press for the influence they have brought to bear. They have swallowed up other institutions, such as the 18th century Weishaupt Illuminati. Part of this influence has been shown by hundreds of authors to have had effect all over the world and to have been more than incidental in the instigating in full or part the revolutions in France, Russia, and even the American War of Independence. A lot of the historical texts seem to point at a war between the Catholic Church and the Freemasons. This is an interesting point, and one that confuses many people when they see that the Masons are actually linked and were created by the Catholic Church. This is a standard ploy used by Secret Service people across the world, and even to be found within the statutes of many secret societies and even religious orders. It was the done thing, to appear on the outside to be against the powers of authority, whilst all the time working for them, to win a football match, own both sides. The facts were fairly clear on this one. The Freemasons can clearly be shown to have evolved from esoteric sects emanating from within the Catholic Church, and as a direct result of Templar influence in Scotland. So the Masons could be traced back to the Catholic Church. So there is a lot of influence brought to bear by the Masons around the world. Most presidents of America, prime ministers, and in fact, most world leaders tend to be connected to the Freemasons, let alone the royal families who are patrons, and even bishops and cardinals. So this goes back to the Templars, a Catholic order. It also goes back to the Knights of St. John or Knights of Malta. Both the Templars and the Knights of Malta have re-emerged from within the Masons and are now orders themselves in various forms. Most still owe allegiance to the Masons, but are distinct. The Knights of Malta can directly be traced back to their origin and are now located in the Vatican. Now, the Jesuits are certainly a part of the Catholic Church and originally influenced and even created the Illuminati. This created a secular and separate society, which later formed back into the Masons, which were created by the Catholics anyway. There is appearing a glimmer of that central part of the wheel here. Before the Illuminati merged into the Masons, they had been implicated in the creation of several other groups, such as the Rosicrucians, Golden Dawn, and even the Lutherans and Protestants. Let us now turn to the Bilderbergers. The Bilderberger Group is an informal, secretive transatlantic council of key decision-makers. Developed between 1952 and 1954, it brought leading European and American personalities together once a year for informal discussions of their differences. The formation of the American wing of Bilderberg was entrusted to Eisenhower's psychological warfare coordinator, C.D. Jackson, and the funding for the first meeting, held at the Hotel de Bilderberg in Holland in 1954, was provided by the Central Intelligence Agency. Thereafter, much of its funding came from the Ford Foundation. The subjects over which the annual meetings ranged were wide, but it is clear that the 1957 Treaty of Rome was nurtured by discussions at Bilderberg the previous year. This modern-day group of the powerful elite has been accused on an international basis of forming the brains behind a new world order. What does appear to have come out of the meetings are two other, namely the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. One of the key institutions that has fostered unity and cooperation with the Atlantic community beyond the old concepts has been the Bilderberg Group. The origins of this group rest with one man, Joseph Redinger, a Catholic who had links to the Jesuit order. He even recommended the turning of Hungary, Austria, and Poland into a tripartite state under the guidance of the Jesuits' order. Sir Edward Beddington Barons said, "I remember Redinger in the United States picking up the telephone and immediately making an appointment with the president. And in Europe, he had complete entree in every political circle as a kind of right acquired through trust, devotion, and loyalty he inspired." He founded the European movement, which gave rise to the Council of Europe in 1949, who then set up in Strasbourg, where Redinger worked. Redinger believed in unity, and to that end, it did not really matter how the unity was brought about. He certainly liked to involve big business and the influence that they created within the general public. We are, after all, tied to our television screens and led by marketing men. The political and religious differences in the world, which created the disunity between certain states, he believed, could be brought together through a corporate ideal. If everybody wanted the same thing, they would all be the same. A market-led revolution was and is, strangely still is taking place. Russia, as the USSR collapsed and is now in the process of commercialization, the same will be and is true of China. This commercialization is creeping across the world like an invading force. Redinger did have left-wing policies, and with his connection to the Jesuits, there are obvious links to take into consideration, not the least of which with the Catholic Church. Involving Prince Bernhard of the Netherlands, Redinger began his crusade by starting on America, who he believed to be essential to world peace. The prince held an important position in Royal Dutch Petroleum, or Shell, and was involved in several international corporations, and so had influence that the Americans and others would respect. In 1952, it was proposed by Redinger that there should be an open and frank discussion between the disparate organizations and individuals that controlled the world. This should be in secret, to allow those taking part to air their views without the worry of it appearing in the newspapers the next day. This was the birth of the Bilderberg Group. And now, we turn to the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission is a private organization founded in 1973 at the initiative of David Rockefeller. It consists of over 300 private citizens from the 3 areas of Europe, Japan, and North America, and is there to promote closer cooperation between these 3 areas. There has been a lot of scrutiny on the Trilateral Commission, and it has been implicated strongly in many conspiracy theories. However, with as many members as it has, there is no surprise that some of them will be connected to other organizations, such as the Catholic Knights of Malta, Catholic Jesuits, and Freemasons. Not least of these was Mr. Rockefeller, former president of the Chase Manhattan Bank and corporate king, a powerful organization with links to all the other groups we are investigating here. And now to the Rosicrucians. The earliest real documentation for the Rosicrucian ideals is from 1597. It is said that a certain alchemist traveled across Europe seeking to begin a society to carry out his newly discovered alchemical ideals. The Fama Fraternitas and the General Reformation of the World appeared in 1614 as fully fledged documents, and so he must have succeeded. The founder is claimed to be Christian Rosencreuz, which is obviously a false name and means the Rosy Cross of the Christians. It is claimed that this character traveled across Arabia, studied at Fez in Egypt, and returned to Europe with his message. A message, we might add, that is decidedly ancient and was originally created by the original Sumerian Shining Ones. The origin of this enigmatic group, then, is false and was therefore created by whoever did begin the order. What clues do we have? There are also parallels with Arabic Illuminati schools, such as those of Jelani, who was known as the Shining Rose. However, when we look at the origins of Masonry and the rituals and beliefs held within, we actually find they are not dissimilar. It appears that Rosicrucianism is yet another form of Catholic diaspora, just like the Jesuit creation of the Illuminati, drawing on the undercurrents of mysticism to create a seemingly anti-self organization. Just like the Freemasons, the Alumbrados, or Illuminated Ones, the Illuminati and dozens of other groups around at that time. The Rosicrucian ways were linked to the Sufi mystics, who had influenced the world for such a long time. The methods required the deepest of concentration upon the master. That absolute adherence to the way was normal. It was another method of control, and the void left behind by the strictness and rigidity of Catholicism was easily filled by hundreds of such groups. Today, the Rosicrucians are a worldwide order with thousands of members, but their influence on the world now is minimal. Although there is a hint in one of their books which tells us that the influence of the person or soul they call the ego will keep returning to constantly make alterations to the way forward for mankind. An invisible force emerging through time to guide and control mankind. Though by many outsiders the existence of Christian Rosicrucius is regarded as a myth, it is nevertheless true that his birth marked the beginning of a new epoch in the spiritual life of the Western world. That particular ego has also been in continuous incarnation ever since, in one or another of the European countries, taking a new body as his successive vehicles outlived their usefulness or circumstances rendered it expedient that he changed the scene of his activities. Moreover, he is incarnate today, an initiate of high degree, an active and potent factor in all affairs of the West, although unknown to the world. He is the Grand Master of the Illuminati. As are all such individuals, he is a representative of the central conclave of the Elder Brothers of humanity. His mission was, and is, to show the spiritual significance of all scientific discoveries, thus counteracting as far as possible the deadening influence of materialistic science, which the Elder Brothers dread more than any other manifestation of human activity. To this end, he labored with the alchemists centuries before the advent of modern science. He, through an intermediary, inspired the now mutilated works of Bacon. Jacob Boehme and others received through him the inspiration which makes their work so spiritually illuminating. In the works of the immortal Goethe and the masterpieces of Wagner, the same influence meets us. It is the same source or ego from where all spiritual illumination has derived. This particular ego has been manifesting itself throughout time. However, it is the same shining influence throughout man's history that has been making these moves, stepping in and out of the scene as cerebral evolution has moved mankind forward. These Rosicrucians call this influence the central conclave of the Elder Brothers. We call them Shining Ones or Illuminati. The same process of illumination is held within the secrets of Rosicrucianism. An early 20th century text states, "It hides from the profane, but reveals to the initiate the more clearly how he is to labor day by day, to make for himself that choicest of all gems, the philosopher's stone, more precious than the Kohinoor, than the sum of all earthly wealth." Apparently, Christ himself wrought this marvelous stone while incarnate in the body of Jesus. The Reichsanzeiger said in one article, "Yes, there is a philosopher's stone. It is an elixir of life. It is all and much more than has ever been claimed for it. Moreover, most people have had it in their hands often, but know it not." How absolutely true that is, yet at the same time, how thoroughly misleading. The secrets held within the pages of that 1910 book are simple now to behold, and upon reading the text, keeping in mind the spiritual experience outlined by the existence of the Shining Ones, reveals nothing more than the Enlightenment experience, the illumination of the Illuminati. We are even told that in order to become an initiate, we cannot simply apply. We will be watched from the sidelines, and our merits in this life counted towards being offered the golden key to the temple. This secret government take the form of 7 brothers who go out into the world whenever occasion requires, appearing as men among other men. In 1935, Himmler's SS established the Ahnennerbe, or ancestral heritage, to seek out occult secrets that would aid the Nazi Party to victory. They traveled across the world to Tibet, South America, Rennes-le-Château, and other special places of occult interest. Without doubt, the whole remit of the Nazi Party was to establish an occult-based theology in a political forum. It was their attempt to re-establish something that they perceived had already been lost. It was nothing new. The same thing had already been done in America. where the Masonic influence had established a Masonic constitution, and the political family of the USA was, and would be forever, based around arcane Masonic and occult secrets. So what was the Nazi concept of Thule? And does it give us any clues as to the secrets of this occult takeover bid? Thule was named after a fabled island, much like Atlantis or Lemuria. It was believed to have been situated somewhere in the north and was lost a long time ago, along with its highly developed and intelligent civilization. But the secrets of this ancient race were not lost. They were instead to be found within the myths and mysteries of the ancient world. Amazingly, followers of the Thule Society believed that they were masters, hiding in the background, who occasionally influenced the human race, just as the Theosophists and Rosicrucians believed. These were the Great White Brotherhood, or Illuminati. Only the true initiate could establish contact with these masters through magic ritual, and once contacted, the initiate would be empowered with great skills and superhuman strength. These extra skills were given to enable the initiate to create the conditions for the master's race, to populate the earth and thus exterminate the inferior races. There are literally hundreds of instances we could cite to show that the Thule Society and other secret societies were inciting all kinds of changes within Europe. The politics of the day is not all what we have previously believed it to be. And so we turn to another Catholic order, the Knights of Malta. They are directly responsible to the Pope and have been linked by hundreds of conspiracy theorists to many scandals. For instance, in the 1980s, Colonel Oliver North authorized an exchange of guns for drugs to finance the Contras in Nicaragua. In order to sort this out, Colonel North needed connections in the underworld and got involved with the Mafia, the CIA, and many other shady organizations and characters. One of these was Al Caroni, who was a colonel in the U.S. Army. He was also a member of the Sovereign Military Order of the Knights of Malta. All of these societies are branches of just one tree. They have all been spawned from the same mother and father, and they can all be traced down the evolutionary timeline and back to ancient Sumeria and the Shining Ones or Illuminated Ones. Take the Freemasons. They can be proven to have come from the Catholic Templars. The Templars showed allegiance to the Catholic Church and the Pope. The Catholic Church sprang from a Roman imperialistic intrusion into the world of religion. These religions were all basically following the same beliefs, and all emerged from the creation of the Sons of Light, otherwise known as the Essene. These were early Gnostic Christians who wrote the New Testament in Qumran. The Christian play, that of Jesus, was a setup by the Essene, which means the Shining Ones, and who stretched back into Egypt. And from Egypt, the ideas were mixed from Sumeria. Kings, queens, and politicians have been at the forefront of these standard histories, keeping the masses happy with the natural order and democracy of life, a created religion, created bishops, kings, queens, and ministers of state, all adhering to a religion that was created by a brotherhood emerging from Sumeria thousands of years ago. A sacred bloodline and secret truths run through them all. And now, in the 21st century, they control the most powerful nations on planet Earth. It is time to see how they took and controlled the USA. This is the real history of America, as you've never seen before. Over a vast period of time, this secretive organization turned slowly to the dark side of esoteric truths and utilized them for power and control. They took their orders from the International Secret Council of Nine. They are collectively called the Confederation of Initiates. They are under the strict control of their masters, and to oppose them means punishment worse than death. It has been this way for thousands of years, and they are working slowly but surely towards their ultimate goal of a one-world government with the Nine in control. In 1932, the International Secret Council of Nine, who direct the Confederation of Initiates of Illuminati, issued the following high-secret statement to the Order of the Rosicrucians. This is the new dispensation, and the work of the spiritual and mystical fraternities must be re-established throughout the world, so that all peoples may be taught the law, and thereby enabled to apply it towards universal improvement as the only means of saving mankind. We, the Council of Nine, have selected your organization as one of the oldest in America to help to do this. This must be brought about in such a manner that there can be no question of personal self-interest. May we suggest that you select as your method that of the pre-Christian Essene order in which Jesus was trained, accepting in good faith all students who apply, on an absolutely free will basis, instructing them in the ancient manner and permitting these students to compensate you on an exchange basis. The man who wrote these words was a Comte de Saint-Vincent, the master of the Council of Nine. This small section reveals a great many things. Firstly, that the Order of the Rosicrucians did indeed come under the rule of the Illuminati. The Rosicrucians were in fact an organization created by the Illuminati to gather in believers and initiates. It worked beautifully and spread throughout the world and then spawned yet further secret orders of its own. This indeed is how the web is created, and the real origin long forgotten and hidden. Secondly, the text reveals that the Rosicrucians were in fact much older and the oldest in the USA. Thirdly, they were to use the old methods from the Essene. These were the Gnostic Jews who wrote all of the New Testament and other texts that didn't make it into the Bible. The Dead Sea Scrolls were written by these mystics. They themselves had their own origins in the much older Egyptian, Syrian, and Eastern cults. It stretches back many thousands of years. Fourthly, they were not this time to be too choosy who they allowed to join. This implies that they used to be, and indeed, that is the truth. Now, with the advent of the second wave of the worldwide revolution about to begin with the Second World War, all were accepted into the fold for the great work to get underway. This was and is a group that is spread throughout the world and have been involved in most of the big revolutions that have occurred, including the French and American revolutions. Dr. Randolph was a man who investigated the order at the time this text was written. He stated, "Many, though by no means all, the alchemists and hermetic philosophers were acolytes of the vast secret brotherhood which has thrived from the earliest ages. The members of this mystic union were the Magi of old, who flourished in Chaldea ages before. They were the original people of Saba. They were the men who founded the Semitic civilizations. Of this great brotherhood sprung Brahma, Buddha, Lutzi, Zoroaster, the Gnostics, the Essene, and Jesus, who was himself an Essene, preached the sacred doctrine of the fountain of life. This fountain of light is the illumination, the inner enlightenment to the reality of existence, and from where the term Illuminati is derived." He continues, "They were the men who first discovered the significance of fire. The transcendent light now illuminates the world, comes from the torches which they lighted at the fountain when all light streameth upon that mystic mountain of initiation. There is nothing original in thaumaturgy, theology, philosophy, psychology, and ontology, but they gave it to the world." Dr. Randolph here reveals the full extent of the Illuminati, that they are secret, spread throughout the world, originated religions, and saw their origin in the illumination of the mind, from philosophy to psychology. They therefore believed they had the right to rule the world, And over time, they used their knowledge to force and manipulate their control over those who refused to see the light. They were right. Everybody else was wrong, and their own doctrines stated such and gave them the right, power, and knowledge to manipulate man. The Rosicrucians are illumins of the oldest stock and were spreading far and wide across the United States. We must realize that these people often speak in parables. They don't always mean what they say. They taught that all the scriptures of all the religions were parables and hid the secret doctrine. The truth of the scriptures to them is that there was not just one Christ, but all are capable of being the light on earth. All have the hidden Christ within, a belief that runs counter to the established church and was therefore hidden. These teachings are in fact spread across all of the secret societies, for all are linked under the web of the Illuminati. All were created directly or indirectly by them. In 1905, one such order was created in the USA by a Dr. Julia Seton and was called the Modern Church. Its purpose was to prepare the minds of the people for the new civilization to come. She stated, "The Illuminati school is the modern school of higher psychology and mysticism, where ancient and occult wisdom is revealed. It teaches new methods of social, ethical, industrial, religious, international, and national liberty. Here is revealed their belief again that they are higher and therefore above all. They will teach the rest of us about their ways, because obviously we need to know. Because they believed God, or the universal life force, was speaking through them, they believed that everybody else was wrong. They used their substantial wealth and power to spread these doctrines, and it was heard. They called mankind to join them. Anybody who did not was obviously not listening to the voice of the universal spirit within them. Those who heard the call and joined were chosen, special. Man, they said, was not part of God, nor a creation of God, but the universal intelligence or cosmic spirit itself." The purpose of this system was simple. It was to take away the individualism of the follower. He was to listen only to the cosmic spirit and not his own reason. Through the various initiations, members of these cults are washed clean of their own mind and given a new one. They are broken and rebuilt. It is a very old method of creating an army. Their new civilization was not to be one of light at all. It was to be one of master and blind servant. Confuse and then make clear. Befuddle and bemuse and then explain in simple terms. These are the methods of forcing the initiate to believe he has become enlightened. By 1925, a new messiah was launched upon the Americans. He was a Russian by the name of Nicholas Roerich, a painter, philosopher, and supposed scientist. In Russia, he had achieved greatness and was adored by many. He was then invited to the USA, where he established the Corona Mundi, the core Earth. He started to teach his ideology of a new era, another name for the New World Order, the new civilization, with the same old story. He became so popular that his teaching spread outwards around the world. He taught the same old things, that the willpower within is the divine essence and is the answer to all. It was, he said, a creed of a new era of mighty approaching energies and possibilities. The sheep listened and followed yet again. The new world, he said, would be created by the fire, the light within us all, joining together and allowing the illuminated to dominate the world and bring peace. Anyone who did not listen were simply negatives. The world would be dominated by the Illuminati. No scientific backing, no evidence, no proof was needed for such mystic statements. He was, however, a member of an organization that was trying to enlighten the world to their new world order. Their light would shine, and others extinguished. But the truth behind the purpose of all of this was hidden. The truth was to take the minds of the people, to control for their own purpose. However, From the moment the first settlers landed in the USA, the message was being spread. The fraternity of the Freemasons were deeply rooted within government, military, religion, and commerce. The Freemasons absorbed, cultivated, and spread the mystic light, the messages of the Masters and the Council of Nine. They did not always understand what they were spreading, but they spread. Those at the highest degrees of initiation were aware, and they created revolution and formed government. These are just ants doing the master's bidding, the army that is called to revolution, to fight. The true Illuminati are hidden, the true masters unseen. Who were the masters? In 1912, the theosophist Annie Besant wrote, "A master is a term applied to theosophites to denote certain human beings who have completed their human evolution, have attained human perfection." It did not matter what society or order the followers belonged to, because the masters ruled them all. In reality, the Theosophists and the Rosicrucians were linked under the group of esoteric men we generally term the Illuminati. They were all fed from the same trough. This hidden group were known to the various groups as the hierarchy of light, the Elder Brothers. Nobody ever saw them, they just did their bidding. Under these men were the 7 masters of the Great White Lodge. These had their hands on the reins of government. They controlled whole continents. They guided destinies, inspired statesmen and rulers to action, governed over many orders and groups. Each master had a name, for there was no face: Jupiter, Moira, Hume, and more. The history of one of them was known, even if his real name and location was not. He had been educated at a British university, was widely read, and was in charge of revitalizing the ancient philosophies. Their aim was to ensure that the head of every government and organization of power and authority should be ruled over by a master, or at the very least, one under a master's control. They were to gather in anybody who showed an interest in seeking the force. Their ultimate goal, they say, is to control all the world under the power and authority of the hidden masters, and to reign over a world of peace, even if that is brought about through war. Only by ensuring that all human minds succumb to the will of the light or fire will true peace come about. All must do the master's bidding, if there is to be peace in the world. Through their various means of establishing this authority of the light, they reduce man down to a shell. The pupil's personality is in turn withdrawn from the physical body until, they say, the man recognizes himself as a part of the master's consciousness. The master is only interested in a man from the point of view of his usefulness and his capacity to learn. These are their own words. They even tell us how the forces are used to enable this control. They use, as all cults have throughout time, rhythmic sounds, words and phrases, music, dance, meditation. These methods remove obstacles in the mind. The rhythmic nature, they say, allows true nature to flow. In essence, it is nothing more than a method of hypnotism, and it is used in churches, Masonic lodges, and all secret societies. The effects are global, for all men are the same natural being. In the early 20th century, the Rosicrucians and Theosophists of America set out their stall. They had a plan, given to them by the masters. They would take control of politics, religion, and education. Through these, they would control business and the rest of the world. America, by the time they had finished, would be the world dominant power. Their vision was realized by the end of World War II, as their great revolution ended. Old empires were destroyed with the 2 world wars, and a new one emerged. Their plans were succeeding. In 1864, revolutionary writer Maurice Joly wrote, "Before thinking of actually directing the public, one must stun it, dazzle it by all sorts of movements, mislead it insensibly in its ways." They did stun the world with 2 dreadful world wars, which were nothing more than revolutions, no different to the French and American versions, which they also set in motion through their secret societies. In the early 20th century, one of the 9 masters actually said, "Experiments are being made now, unknown by the subjects themselves, that people in many civilized countries are under supervision, and a method of stimulation and intensification is being applied, which will bring to the knowledge of the great ones themselves a mass of information that may serve as a guide to their future efforts for the race." Especially are people in America, Australia, India, Russia, Scotland, and Greece being dealt with. A few in Belgium, Sweden, and Austria are likewise under observation. Schools have already been started. When they are firmly grounded, when they are working smoothly and with public recognition, and when the world of men is being somewhat colored by them, when they are producing scholars, workers, politicians, scientists, and educational leaders who make their impress on their environment, then mayhap will come the true occult school. The whole idea, yet again, is to control the minds of man. The control is so complete that, in their own words, the initiate cares not if he loses friends, relations, children, or popularity. He cares not if he seems to work in the dark and is conscious of little result from his labors. By 1927, they claimed that we are witnessing the birth of a new world consciousness, of a world civilization. Old traditions are being broken down, old customs destroyed. There must be anarchy before there can be creation. Their workers are necessarily cultured and widely read. They do not regard their country and political affiliations as of paramount importance. They are equipped to organize, slowly and steadily, that public opinion. The biggest work for them, they predicted, was to be the mid-1930s. It was to be the time of anarchy before the calm. They said of the 1930s, material stress and strain, the wrecking of old political parties, the overthrowing of trade relations. All of this came true. The Depression caused mayhem, political upheaval, and saw the birth of new, radical political parties around the world, and none more so than in Nazi Germany. All of this was needed, they said, to demonstrate the necessity of establishing a spirit of international dependence and interrelation, so that the nations would be politically forced to realize that isolation, separateness, and the cultivation of national egoism must go. After the first revolution of World War I, they brought about the League of Nations, a group of countries desiring never again to see war on such scale. It was, in fact, the creation of a secretive group of international business leaders, politicians, and mystics, all linked to the Illuminati, and all now with the authority of the broken public behind them. Phase 2 would be started by these same people in the 1930s as Hitler was founded, funded, and sent on his merry way to create mayhem. And what of America? That was simple and was under control. Political parties there were almost incidental because it was in the teenage years of true capitalism. It was therefore controlled not by presidents and Congress, but by business. Business leaders were already under the power of the masters through the Masonic brotherhoods, and they chose and controlled the politicians, most of which were Masons anyhow. The Masons were directly under the influence of the masters. Job done. The fate of the world was sealed. Anarchy was set in motion. The USA sat back, grew in power, and watched and waited. They then jumped in at the perfect moment and brought the might of that wealth and industrial power to bear. The world blew a sigh of relief and shouted, "Never again." And the Second World War was over. The United Nations was formed. Blame attributed, and man moved on. In a few short years, a disparate world had been forced to join together at the same table. It was unprecedented. It was predicted. It was planned. In fact, the prediction was so perfect, they even gave the year that World War II would end and the new world faith would begin to take shape. 1945. The United States was called the New World for a good reason. It was to be the place from which the New World Order would be created. This plan was centuries old. The old world of Europe, its monarchies and religions would be left behind, and the enlightened minds of a United States created. All of this takes time and a great deal of work, but the very foundations of America are those of the Illuminati. As one writer in the early 20th century wrote, "How did it happen at the time of the American Revolution, when next to nothing was known of the mathematical interpretation of the Great Pyramid, that its symbolism was used in concrete exactness on the Great Seal of the United States, indicating that it was the part of America to reinstate the rule of Christ, the light or illumination on earth? It happened because it was a symbol and sign for all to see, for many to rejoice over and others to fear. It was the symbol of the coming to power of the hidden masters." An American High Mason and Rosicrucian in 1877 wrote, "In the last century, the United States was freed from the tyranny of the mother country by the action of secret societies, more than is commonly imagined." It was true. All of those in positions of power and authority on all sides of the American Revolution were in fact brothers of the same lodges and fraternities. They even held meetings between political enemies of brothers on the battlefields. It was all staged. It was staged again, but pushed out into the wider world in the 20th century World War revolutions. This is what the Illuminati said in the 1920s. "Do you know that there are men and women in the United States who are able to look into the immediate future with transcendent vision and discern accurately a complete metamorphosis of our present institutions along more wholesome lines? This means, in plain language, that they can see what improvements in our political and economic order are going to arise from this present period of distress and turmoil. They see these improvements crystallizing between 1933 and 1945, both dates written large on the Great Pyramid prophecy. 1933 is the year that Adolf Hitler came to power. 1945 is the year his reign ended. It had all in fact been going on a long time. Often the politicians are completely unaware of it and are just pawns in the bigger game. Other times they fully know and cover up. George Washington, who was himself a Freemason, wrote, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more truly satisfied of this fact than I am. There has always been two sides to the Illuminati movement. The mystical side we have covered, but this is in truth just a modern cover for the political schemings in the background. In the 18th century, when the name Illuminati surfaced, the political clubs were called Jacobin clubs, seen by many as aristocratic groups fostering followers. Today, their direct descendants are known as the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the United Nations, and more. All of these can be easily traced back to those earlier groups. Even the same bloodlines exist within all the organizations, the same families again and again. They plan and scheme and throw up congressmen, senators, and presidents and place them where they are needed. They manipulate the masses to carry out that fakery they call democracy. There are several well-known and often covered names involved in all of this. The European financier family that has huge influence is the Rockefeller family. David Rockefeller founded the Trilateral Commission and was a co-founder of the Council on Foreign Relations. The family tree reads like an Illuminati greatest hits album. Through just the minor work of this one family, a grand unification has taken place. Countries of the world have been brought together under the powerful influence of just one head. The United Nations is a group of nations, but the delegates all owe their own positions to the various branches of the worldwide Illuminati, and so they proceed to do the master's bidding. What the Illuminati cannot make happen through influence, they bring about through revolution. The United States was the major game player in World War I and II. Woodrow Wilson's 14-point plan after World War I held within it a veiled attempt to get all nations to surrender their sovereignty. It almost worked when they formed the League of Nations. However, the U.S. never actually joined itself. It didn't really matter, because World War II was already under planning stages, and the Council on Foreign Relations was created behind the scenes. This is an almost country-sized secret society in itself, plotting and planning on our behalf. Most of the members have bloodlines that stretch back to the early days of the Illuminati and royal houses of Europe. The rest are high-powered businessmen and other such people in positions of vast power. We must remember that all of these institutions are places for generally non-elected people. The same is true of that other global secret group, the Bilderbergers. In the USA, there is a friendly group called the American Friends of the Bilderbergers. Each group is made up of chosen individuals. Chosen by whom? Somebody here has the power to choose people who already have amazing power? Surely, in a so-called democratic nation, the people should be informed of what, who, and why. The Bilderberger is made up from the world of international banking, political circles, and business and professional people. They hold top-secret meetings annually, and all of the meetings are secret. Nobody ever tells. So just how and when did the Illuminati influence in the United States begin? The very first official mention of them is in around 1785, when the Columbia Lodge of the Illuminati was established in New York. Some of its members were Governor Clinton, the editor of the New York Times, and the early Roosevelts. In 1786, another lodge started in Virginia, with Thomas Jefferson as a member. This was followed quickly by 14 more lodges throughout the then 13 states. By 1789, some people were getting concerned. The president of Harvard issued a warning about their growing influence on politics and even religion. At the exact same time, the French Illuminati came to pay a visit and helped to spread it even further. George Washington was so worried about the Illuminati and its influence that he said it would shake the government to its foundations. Both Washington and Adams lobbied Congress to protect the U.S. from conspiracy. Thomas Paine, the author, actually aided the Illuminati to infiltrate several Masonic lodges. By 1798, the Reverend Jedediah Morse in Charleston, South Carolina, preached a sermon about the Illuminati. Practically all of the civil and ecclesiastical establishments of Europe have already been shaken to their foundations by this terrible organization. The French Revolution itself is doubtless to be traced to its machinations. The successes of the French armies are to be explained on the same ground. The Jacobins are nothing more nor less than the open manifestation of the hidden system of the Illuminati. The order has its branches established and its emissaries at work in America. The affiliated Jacobin societies in America have doubtless had as the object of their establishment the propagation of the principles of the Illuminated Mother Club in France. In the same year, the president of Yale University said, "Shall our sons become the disciples of Voltaire and the dragoons of Marat, or our daughters, the concubines of the Illuminati?" Thomas Jefferson, a member of the Virginia Lodge of the Illuminati and a Mason, helped the Illuminati to infiltrate the New England Masonic lodges. Also, in 1798, the Reverend Snyder, a Lutheran minister, wrote to President Washington expressing his concern about the Illuminati infiltrating the American Masonic lodges. Washington wrote back, I have heard much about the nefarious and dangerous plan and doctrines of the Illuminati. Shortly before his death, Washington issued 2 dire warnings about the Illuminati. In 1807, the future president, John Adams, wrote 3 letters to a Masonic brother complaining that Thomas Jefferson was using the lodges for Illuminati purposes. The letters have been stolen and never seen since. He also wrote to Washington and others saying that the lodges were being used by Illuminati for their satanic worship. Rumors also circulated that Benjamin Franklin was Illuminati, but most of the focus and hatred was directed at Jefferson, who the Reverend Morse called an Illuminatus. In 1812, the president of Harvard gave the following speech: "There is sufficient evidence that a number of societies of the Illuminati have been established in this land of gospel light and civil liberty, which were first organized from the Grand Society in France. They are doubtless secretly striving to undermine all our ancient institutions, civil and sacred. These societies are closely leagued with those of the same order. In Europe, they have all the same object in view. The enemies of all order are seeking our ruin. Should infidelity generally prevail, our independence would fall, of course. Our republican government would be annihilated." In that same year, the British attacked Washington in order to destroy vital documents that revealed the Illuminati influence on the government and the war. In 1829, the British Illuminati were giving speeches in New York. Frances Wright spoke for the Women's Auxiliary of the Illuminati on free love and atheism. She spoke of the international secret movement that was working behind the scenes to foment future wars, to bring about the one world agenda. Indeed, they were called communists before communism. It was the plan, she said, to create mayhem, so that the members of the Illuminati were seen as the saviors and bring peace. At the same time, the editors of the New York Tribune and New York Sun were working with the Rothschilds on a secret Illuminati committee. It is believed the committee was all about the running of America from behind the scenes. In 1841, Clinton Roosevelt wrote a book outlining plans for the New Deal and National Recovery Act, both of which would not even be realized for another 100 years under Franklin D. Roosevelt. Long-term plans and family bloodlines indeed. Throughout this whole time, the Illuminati influence in the government of the United States was immense. From the Constitution to the political structure, it was a massive political influence, and still is. But that second tier of Illuminati influence also played a major role, for the two cannot be divided. The mystical side of the Illumins is clear to see even to this day because of their huge influence. From the sacred geometry of Washington, D.C., to the all-seeing eye on the dollar bill, the sacred symbols of Illuminism are everywhere for those with the eyes to see. In essence, the history of the Illuminati in the United States cannot be divided from the rest of the world because it is all about the creation of a new world, and the Americas play a vital role in that grand plan. They started many thousands of years ago in the mysterious cults of Syria and elsewhere. They grew a deep and profound understanding of the human mind within the universal mind, the man in matter, the spirit in nature. Through the use of drugs, meditation, dervish, and other means, they tripped the light fantastic and began a journey towards the light. Along the way, greed and desire for power stepped in and turned the knowledge gained towards the dark side. Over vast periods of time, power was jealously guarded and grown. But man is a chaotic being, and power a strong pull. They didn't always have it their own way and fought many battles for control. Over time, they have brought down governments, royal dynasties, and religions. They have thrown the world into the desperate pit of warfare and even pandemics. And then they have offered us peace and calm on their terms. They have grown wealth so vast that it staggers the mind. Nobody now is in a position to truly fight them or has enough knowledge to truly reveal them. That is why they are the enigma we know as the Illuminati. But they have taken America. They do own every large institution, every large business. Their men and women are in the highest offices of the land. All listen to the Master's voice, talking to them through the eons of mysticism in a political world of power. Next time you cast your vote, just ask yourself, why you bother? You are given two choices, as always, left or right. It does not matter. Both are under the yoke of the masters.